we try to have a look at how subnational trust, meaning trust in subnational authorities and institutions work, and how it varies across countries, but also across individuals. So the idea from the paper stemmed from the fact that this decline in political trust across Europe is crucial, impacts many aspects of democracy, but also is not a uniform phenomenon. The intensity and nature, and therefore its determinants, change across countries, but also across territorial levels of government. And even though the data for measuring trust in subnational institutions are not perfect, are not great, we like lost causes, so we try anyway to measure it somehow. Even if it's not super easy to do based on existing data, mostly Eurobarometer data. So the focus is on subnational institutions and on the trust that citizens have or not towards them, but also on its determinants. Determinants that are going to be studied both at individual level, so which traits in citizens can favor or disfavor trust in subnational institutions and in general in institutions, we'll see, and also at the level of the institutions themselves. Why? Because our broad research question was what factors influence the level of citizen trust in subnational political institutions, and we tried to explore that by looking at, as a dependent variable, trust in subnational authorities, but also to compare that with trust in EU and national institutions, just to have a broader picture, even though the focus is on subnational authorities. And as the research question indicates, we try to look at the determinants, what actually affects this variation in levels of trust. And in order to identify the determinants, we mostly looked at three factors. A set of factors that are at systemic level, starting from a huge literature that looks at institutional and broadly economic context variables at subnational level for understanding the attitudes of citizens towards subnational institutions. We took a series of measures of subnational autonomy. So the idea is that the more regional and local authorities have power, the more citizens will be satisfied of the work that they carry out, the service they provide, and therefore the more they trust such institutions. But also we look at the quality of democracy at subnational level. The idea is that the higher the quality of democracy, the more transparent, the more accountable local democracy is, the more citizens will trust such institutions. And the third set of hypotheses, which is not tested in this paper yet because the data still needs some adjusting, is territorial identity. So we wanted to look also at individual level features and see how much the level of attachment of individuals to their local authorities, the level of local identity, the level of interest in local and regional political affairs will determine the level of trust, also based on existing literature. But for the third hypothesis, we'll work on it later, but any suggestion is more than welcome. So in terms of data, in order to integrate all these kind of different levels of variables, we merged different ways of data from VDEM for measuring all the institutional variables on the quality of democracy and subnational autonomy, and the standard Eurobarometer for individual level public opinion data. For measuring trust, for example, there's a very simple question on how much do you trust this institution. There's a list of institutions, EU level, national level, and subnational level institutions. The sample integrated 27 member states plus 11 additional countries, for example, Montenegro, Serbia, UK, and so on. So we combined the two data sets. For VDEM, we mostly took variables that measure the level of autonomy of subnational institution, whether there's a subnational authority, where it is selected, and what is the relative power of that authority compared to national or unelected ones. And for standard Eurobarometer, well, as I said, variables measuring trust and variables measuring other broadly social demographic control variables. So for the moment, we've done some descriptives, and we tried to run some regression just to have a look at what's happening. So this is just a quick visualization of how the degree of autonomy of subnational government varies also over time. The data go from 2019 to 2023. So the idea is to also have a look at the evolution over time. And if you see the spatial analysis, you see that the biggest chunk of subnational authority based on VDEM data mostly cover the relative power of regional, we call the regional offices, because in some cases is executive, in some cases is legislative power, depending on the level that is analyzed. And this is the one also that shrank a bit over time. And the biggest power are actually measured for local offices, local institutions rather than regional ones. But you can see how these vary over the main indicators. Now, we mostly run regression, so I didn't integrate them in the PowerPoint because it's very raw, very dry regression tables. But if you want to have a look at them, there are like 40 different tables in the annexes of the paper if you want to really have a look at how the analysis look like. So what comes out of the analysis? First of all, there's a clear relationship between the quality of democracy at subnational level and trust, both towards subnational institutions and also national and European ones. So the more citizens are trusting subnational institutions, the more this is due, but also European and national law, the more this is related to the level of quality of democracy. Quality of democracy meaning is measured through variables looking at whether there are elections at subnational level, how fair and competitive they are, how many parties there are, how parties are democratic, how, for example, candidates are selected at local and subnational level, and so on. So the more there's a high level, as measured by VDEM variables, of quality of democracy at subnational level, the stronger the level of trust in subnational institutions. There's also a positive relationship between the level of autonomy of subnational authorities and the trust that citizens have in them. But this relationship is less clear when we look at trust in national institutions. So if subnational authorities have a lot of power, comparatively speaking, well, there's some kind of reduction in the trust in national governments. This is some kind of zero-sum legitimacy in which citizens perceive that more autonomy to the local level means that the national one might be less effective or is losing some of its power. So the results are more mixed when we use the same data to compare subnational trust, trust in subnational institutions with trust in national and European institutions. Again, the biggest results concern the quality of democracy impact in determining level of trust at the three levels, subnational, national, and European. What does it mean? Well, it means that we need to run more analysis. We need to integrate the variables concerning identity too. So what we call, the Moreno question: how much citizens feel to belong to or identify with local governments, and how much they are interested in local government affairs. But bottom line, subnational quality of democracy is a strong predictor than autonomy. So giving more power to regions doesn't mean that citizens will be trusting more those institutions. And therefore, if we need to go towards policy recommendation, the idea is really that improving election on local level, improving the dynamics of power between legislative and executive power at subnational level pays off way more than just giving more powers to regional authorities. So thank you for your time, and really looking forward to comments because we need to work more on this. Thank you.